All right, welcome in everyone to Building the Broncos. I am your host, Carl Dumler, and of course, Mr. Nick Kendell is joining me. And I see you're wearing a Marvel shirt there. Nice, Mr. Captain America. And you even got the hair going with it. I mean, everything.
Not the teeth. Michael Strahan and I had the same.
Yeah. I got the Warrior Dash shirt going today.
Okay.
So got some race training that I'm doing right now. Got my race canceled in June here, unfortunately, but there might be one in Denver in August. So we'll see if that happens or not. But anyway, I'm excited to talk some football here with you once again for another week. And today we're going to be kind of digging into the roles of the rookies and kind of what we see them having as especially just their rookie season. What can they bring to the table? What are some realistic expectations for everyone? And so we're going to get into that, but I want to make sure everybody knows, make sure you're following us on Twitter. You can find me at Carl Dumler MHH and Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. And of course, the podcast Twitter account at BTB Football Pod. Make sure you're subscribing to our show wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating. Also, don't miss out on all of our great off-season content at milehighhuddle.com of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. And also know that this podcast is powered by Overtime Media. All right. Well, we are. I love every week that we get to do this, man. It always goes. I know it always goes so fast. So everybody, welcome in. Appreciate you all joining us here today. And let's dig into this. Let's start. Just want to go the first round. Kind of talk through each round. Is that how you want to do this?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go.
Okay.
Well, first we got to say, obviously, hi, Buana Beast in here. Miller, hi, Rob. Clayton Heron, love the show. Thank you. Karen Haynes, Bronx legend, of course. Terry Randall, Steve Baumgartner, Dylan Van Arks. I mean, we got some MVPs in here today. So really excited to get still talking some Denver Broncos draft. It's the best time of year still.
Right. And just to give a little hint, maybe halfway through the show, we might have a little bit of a giveaway. So you're going to want to pay attention. So we're going to have a little contest, see if somebody can guess something. I'm excited about that. But anyway, all right, let's get into the draft here. We got Jerry Jeudy in the first round.
Yeah.
And
before we even get there, let's talk about what we're going to do today.
Okay.
Obviously. So today, Carl and I talked about, we still have obviously all these morsels in regards to the Denver Broncos draft. And now that we have all the speculation over in regards to who the Broncos are going to be adding, now comes an equally fun part, in my opinion, is wondering how all these puzzle pieces just fit together perfectly. So we're going to go through the draft order today, the Broncos draft hall, maybe even some of the undrafted free agent guys as well, and just talk about the guys that are going to be in competition with this upcoming season for roster spot, where these rookies are going to fit on the roster, and just the overall roles we would project them in this season. So obviously excited to talk about that. Number 1, 15th pick overall, Buana Beast, Nick's mom's cookie giveaway. You guys, we're clicking the same one there, Carl. I'll let you handle that. You're better at that than I am. I shake the computer a little bit. I'm a little bit of a pounder in that regard. But Jerry Jeudy, 15 overall, Denver Broncos wide receiver. I guess the big question here, Carl, who is the Broncos' number 1 wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy or Courtland Sutton?
Can the answer be both?
Trick question. You guarantee you passed. I'm so happy with you. Yes. Guess what, guys? Just like the Broncos had 3 really good cornerbacks in 2015 with the likes of Aqib Talib, Chris Harris Jr., Bradley Roby, just like they have Bradley Chubb and Von Miller now, you can have more than one good player at a position that sees the field more than one at a time. You can have 3 wide receivers on the field at the same time. In fact, that's a majority. So if you have 2 number 1 wide receivers, well done. You're ahead of the game. So Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, for me, obviously. So I'll kick it off to you. You're more the wide receiver guy than I am, even though I've been pounding the table for wide receiver this whole season. What is Jerry Judy's role this upcoming season? Who's he in competition with for snaps?
Well, nobody, honestly. I mean, he's the number 2 guy the day he walks in the building. Unfortunately, the Broncos were just so down on talent at the wide receiver position. It was Courtland Sutton clear up here at the top, and then a bunch of guys that honestly, I don't want to be too harsh on them, but most teams, they would not be on the roster, or they would be those really bottom tier special teams kind of guys. Tim Patrick, Hamilton, those 2, they can be special teams guys, but you don't want them being your starters. And so for me, right off the bat, Jerry Jeudy, he's going to take over. I mean, I went to training camp last year, and maybe some of our listeners can talk about this as well. The offense was just terrible. There was such a lack of athleticism beyond Courtland Sutton. I mean, he was making plays, and if the receivers made a play, it was them making a catch with the defender right there. The defense dominated. And so you could just tell that there was just something missing there. Noah Fant helped a little bit. When Philip Lindsay finally returned from his injury, he helped a little bit, but it's still, there's a reason that even Drew Lock today was talking about, and I think it's supposed to air on NFL Network tonight, an interview with James Palmer, where he's talking about teams just said, we're going to double Courtland. And if we do that, we think we can beat the Broncos, because the other guys don't scare them one bit. And so, again, that's why Jerry Jeudy, the day he walks in, should be with the number one offense.
I want to take the reins here, actually, the point that you just said. It was James Palmer, who's been doing a lot of stuff with the Denver Broncos, obviously covering them for years. But he said in an interview that when I covered these games, I talked to offensive and defensive coordinators and players on both teams going into each game every week. And down the stretch for the Denver Broncos, defensive players were just telling me that if we just take Courtland Sutton out of the game, we are beating the Denver Broncos. That was the game plan for every team he talked to. And so now the Broncos add Jerry Jeudy. They also had a guy named KJ Hamler in the second round. Can't really do that so much anymore. So Sutton is going to be so much better. The wide receivers are going to be so much better. And also last year, I thought this was a really interesting stat. Going back watching the tape, Courtland Sutton did a great job of separating from year one to year two in terms of his route running. And yet last year, he still was the 142nd out of 143 wide receivers who ran at least 100 routes in terms of average yards of separation per target, which means that, so Sutton was getting separation. So what does this mean? It means that the Broncos were throwing the ball to Sutton pretty much covered, not covered, didn't matter. They're getting the ball to Sutton because the other guys, even if you're throwing the ball to, let's say, Deshaun Hamilton, it's 3 yards and down he goes. So, when you look at that stat on its surface, 142nd out of 143 in terms of average separation when targeted, that's not good. But that just shows also that the Broncos were throwing the ball to Sutton, and even when he was covered, he was getting targets. So now that he's going to be less covered, going to have better opportunities, he should be even more efficient next year. So obviously getting off the tracks here in regards to the draft class and how they're fitting in here, but really excited about this impact and your comment here in regards to Jerry Jeudy adding to Courtland Sutton's ability.
Right. We kept saying before the draft, Terry Randall, thank you for the super chat, # Nick's Beer Fund. I saw a couple people say, I heard an opening of a cold snack.
I always put my mic down, so you're not supposed to exactly see it. So I put the mic right by it.
It's here we go. Get this in here as well before we get too much into the conversation. Bronx Legend, appreciate it. Good stuff, guys. Keep repping. # state of being. # DB for life. Agreed. But you're right. Courtland Sutton should be the happiest player on the team other than Drew Lock for what the Broncos have done this offseason. It just makes his job so much easier, where he's not having to try to fight through double teams. He's not having a safety shadow him every single time. It's opening up his underneath routes that he is so good when he gets the ball in his hands of what he can do with it to score touchdowns or pick up big gains, whatever. It just opens up everything for him, for Noah Fant as well. It makes life easier on everybody in the offense when there's
even
more
the offensive
playmakers.
line.
Yeah, it does. Because, I mean, here again, this is something that Drew Lock talked about. Teams can no longer just do a single high safety against the Broncos and have that safety shadow Courtland Sutton.
Whatever side of the field Courtland Sutton is on, that's where that single high safety is going. And that opens up the run game because it opens up the box. So synergy, folks. Synergy.
It is. And so, when they have to keep that extra safety back, so you're going to see a lot more, 2 safety looks, teams playing a little bit more of a shell. You're going to see a lot more zone coverage against this team because of the speed. There's so much, again, that just adding Jerry Jeudy alone opens up things for this offense. I mean, we're going to talk about another guy here in just a second that opens it up even more. But teams have to fear what Jerry Jeudy can do at every level of the field. I mean, that's why he is probably going to be the biggest impact wide receiver right off the bat coming out. One, he's most NFL ready, especially with everything that's going on with the shortened offseason, all those things that are going to happen. He's he's going to be a guy that can hit the field and be a number one wide receiver day one. He can get open in a hurry. He can play the slot, can play the outside. He can do a lot of everything that you need him to do. The only thing I worry about is him learning the playbook. I don't know how good he is at learning playbooks. I do know from people I've talked to, he is just a guy that loves football and just lives and breathes football. And so I do think that he's probably going to work pretty hard at the playbook. It was easy to see that he understood advanced things in football that a lot of wide receivers, you have to teach them when they get to the NFL. He doesn't have to be taught all those things. And so, again, he can hit the ground running. When Drew Lock and him can get a connection going, it's going to be amazing how much that opens up, like I said, the entire offense.
And one thing I love about Jeudy is that obviously there are only so many different types of routes that make sense. I mean, the quarterback only has so long to get rid of the ball, but he can run a slant 4 different ways. I mean, how he's able to use his hips, keep his feet square with his base, not get overextended. And then, he'll sell his hips to the outside. As soon as that defensive back's caught flat-footed, he's taken off on the inside. So I love the nuance he brings, whether that be the slot or the Z position, because Cortland Sutton, I think, is going to mostly eat up those X reps. But so I guess that's the biggest question now. Is there anybody on this Broncos offensive wide receiver that could threaten Jeudy's role as the other wide receiver one?
Probably our second round pick is the only guy that maybe could take away some snaps from him. I mean, that's the only thing I can see there, because I think he can bring so many extra elements to the offense. Let's say they really want to get vertical. Well, you're going to put KJ Hamler on the field over Jerry Jeudy. I mean, I love Jerry Jeudy, but KJ Hamler, he's a speedster. I mean, he's the guy. Both? Well, I know, I agree, but there might be those plays where they decide. Let's say I know another guy we're going to talk about is Mr. Alberto, that they decided to go big with 2 tight ends and 2 speed wide, or Sutton on one side, Hamler on the other, to force teams to have to still keep those 2 safeties back. Well, then you got your big front and you got athleticism on the outside. Well, what kind of defense do you play? Do you play nickel? Do you play dime? Do you play your base defense? What do you do there? It just causes a lot of matchup nightmares in those kind of situations. That's the only way I could see them wanting to take Jerry Jeudy off the field.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I guess the biggest thing is for Jeudy, I felt he was the most effective in slot during his time at Alabama. Now, granted, that might be just the situation of what they have around him. He does project well as the Z as well. I mean, a guy who a little bit skinny, but his ability to beat press, you do see it on tape. Now, granted, he has a 2-way go in the slot compared to on the boundary, but that's something, and he's a little skinnier as well. So that's something that is a little bit of a projection, but I think for ideally, you're going to see him take a majority of his reps at Z long-term, but probably year one, you're going to see about a 50-50 split between the slot and the Z position at wide receiver. And I think he will be the Broncos' most targeted wide receiver in this offense, even with the issue going on in regards to getting the offense going, everything running because of everything going on in the world.
Yeah.
But I think that we saw last year with Deshaun Hamilton, just because Cortland Sutton was taking up the more of the explosive routes on the boundary, drawing coverage, etc. Deshaun Hamilton was getting targets like crazy. Granted, as soon as he caught them, he was going down. Now you got a guy who's a better route runner, a more explosive athlete, better after the catch, blah, 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 blah. And you're having those precise routes with Jerry Jeudy instead of Deshaun Hamilton. It just makes everything more explosive. And even the simple plays of a little slant from the slot can turn into a big gain. So Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver 1 or 2, doesn't matter to me. Probably less yards per target, less ADOT, if you will, for you fantasy nerds out there, average depth of target, and compared to Cortland Sutton. But both of them really good, and we've talked about it here for years now. Building a wide receiver like a basketball team, getting guys who win in different ways. Sutton and Jeudy win in different ways. Moving on now to round 2, while Carl coughs. Get that out there. Be careful.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Oh, yeah, sure. But now we're moving on to round 2 here. Pick 46, KJ Hamler. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit more interesting. Jerry Jeudy, as plug and play as they come for any rookie wide receiver. And again, talking about the irregular offseason, it's going to be a little harder for rookies, even than typically rookie wide receivers take a little bit to get going. Probably even more so this offseason. KJ Hamler comes in now. He's a guy that I've seen some project more as the boundary of Jeudy and slot, although KJ Hamler, I worry about his size to get off press. I mean, that's even more of a projection than Jerry Jeudy at Z. So probably for me, Hamler comes in as a guy that's going to compete with slot. I think he'll probably get equal points or equal chances between Hamler and Hamilton, the two Penn State guys, as far as, Hamilton can play some Z when Judy's in slot, and Jeudy can play some Z when Hamler's in slot. But Hamler's just so explosive. I mean, Vic Fangio, it absolutely warms my heart that old coach Vic is on the table pounding about getting speed for this offense because it can change how defenses play you. I mean, if anybody should know what's going to impact you as a defensive team and what you can do structurally, it's Vic Fangio. So make me feel really validated that we've been screaming that from anybody who will listen for the past year.
Yep.
But Hamler, probably obviously more of a year 2, 3, 4 guy than what you'll get from Jeudy. But because of his ability to stretch the football field, be a gadget guy year 1, and slot fades on slot fades, inject that straight into my veins, I think that he'll be competing more with Deshaun Hamilton, who I do think will make the team in regards to snaps this season. But hopefully by the end of the year, he will solidify himself as the wide receiver 3.
Well, and here's the other thing with him. I had somebody argue this with me, and I'm like, why would you argue this part? Because he could also be our special teams returner. I saw, what was it? I guess it would have been his sophomore year or redshirt freshman year, whatever you want to call it. I mean, he was one of the best returners in football, in college football, with that speed and just his vision in the open field. The Broncos would be stupid not to take advantage of that. I know they have Deontay Spencer, who was a good returner last year, but this could also help you free up another roster spot. So I think Hamler could threaten Deontay Spencer's role with the team. I'm not saying that you want Hamler to be your full-time returner, so I still think Spencer makes it at least this year. But at the same time, I just think you have to kind of factor that in, that could be where they tried to get him on the field, get him some more snaps, get him some actual balls in his hands. Because I know that was, not the best wording, but
I didn't say it.
I know I did, but I think that's going to be one of the biggest things that I'm interested to see this year is the targets that everybody gets. Last year, it pretty much was you try to get the ball to Cortland Sutton or Noah Fant, and that's about your offense. Every once in a while, you look at everybody else just to keep a defense honest, but for the most part, that was how it went. Now, all of a sudden, the Broncos have almost too many weapons, which is kind of a can you say that? It's like, can you have too many pass rushers?
Yeah, we talked about this last week. There's a difference between a good problem and a bad problem.
Yeah,
and you're talking about a good problem there.
Yeah, it is. It is a good problem, but it is going to be interesting just to see how the disbursement goes. Now, that's nice where Jerry Jeudy's coming from an offense that had that problem too. And he still got a lot of targets because he is that target eater that you like on an offense, where Cortland Sutton, he still got a lot of targets this last year, but it was a lot more further down the field trying to make the big play kind of thing, where Jerry Jeudy is that consistent underneath guy that you can really pad the completion percentage stats for Drew Lock. And then Hamler, of course, is your other big player down the field. Noah Fant is kind of your do it all across the field. Whatever you kind of need, he can do on the field. So again, you got a lot of options that the Broncos are going to be able to bring. And I'm interested to see how Drew Lock handles going from 1 to 2 weapons to now about 5 to 6 weapons.
It's a good problem to have. And one thing I do want to bring up about KJ Hamler, it's something that we preached in regards to adding somebody like Henry Ruggs. You can kind of also say it with KJ Hamler, is that because of his speed, because of his big play ability, he can impact a game when he doesn't even have a catch because he's clearing routes down the field. And this is from Chris Trapasso from CBS. He's saying, and a deep over route to Jerry Jeudy is going to be there now because the safeties have to respect in the game plan to stop Hamler. We never really got to see how fast KJ Hamler was because he didn't run at the combine, didn't have a pro day, but he's a sub 4.4 guy, maybe a sub 4.3 guy, had 11 catches over 20 yards last year with 5 touchdowns. So teams have to respect the speed. And that's what Vic Fangio wanted. He wanted a guy who had matchup dictating speed to help everybody else have a synergistic effect on the offense. And that's what Hamler can bring. Even if he doesn't get targeted, you have to respect him. It's the Will Fuller effect. So maybe it's a little bit more limited than Ruggs because Ruggs has 20, 25 pounds on him. So Ruggs has a little bit more ability to play the boundary, where Hamler might be slot limited. But because of today's game with 11 personnel, and you can get that speed on the field still and not have to worry about it being, smothered by press coverage. So it's really a good situation to be in. I'm really excited to see Hamler. I do wonder if year one, you talked about Deontay Spencer. I think personally, I'd like to keep Deontay Spencer on the roster so that way you're not subjecting Hamler to special teams roles. That way he can mainly focus on his ability as a route runner. And granted, you talk about the home run threat that KJ Hamler is. He's still one of the better underneath receivers too, because he can separate and change direction so quickly. I mean, he's a quick hitter as well. So, I mean, that slant he had against Ohio State 2 years ago where he just left Sean Wade in the dust. I mean, that was just a quick little boop and he's gone. So I love this pick. I love both these guys. I think battling for wide receiver 3, I think you'll see Deshaun Hamilton early on be that wide receiver 3, just a little bit more of a trusted guy and can move that offense. But I think they'll lean more and more towards the other Penn State guy and Hamler as the season wears on.
So here's the play I keep imagining in my head, just because early in the game, I think this could be that big hitter for the Broncos, is Hamler in the slot, Jeudy on the outside in that Z spot, and you have Jeudy run the slant pattern to the inside. You have Hamler run the wheel route to the outside. And then you've got that one safety that has to choose. Am I coming down to help with the slant route, or am I staying deep to help with coverage down the field? And then, of course, because they're crossing, you got defenders who are getting mixed up. And I just think that kind of play. And then off of that, you can run so many things where you have Hamler fake like he's going to do the wheel route, all of a sudden cut back inside. Jeudy fake like he's going inside, go outside. And again, those are the things that I just keep imagining with this pair being on the same side of the field. Because that kind of athleticism, that quickness, the ability to get open in such a hurry, the sky's the limit now. I mean, the entire playbook is open for this team where it wasn't last year. I mean, they were limited just because of the talent or the lack of talent that was on the roster. And so where they went from one extreme to the other now, I would say went from probably bottom 5 playmakers in the NFL to probably, I would say, at least top 10. I'm not going to say top 5 yet, but
too unproven, but exciting.
Yeah.
As far as the potential, the next 5 years, they have the potential to be as good as anybody.
Right.
So we should move on here. We're 22 minutes in and we've been talking only about the first 2 picks. That's okay. I mean, that's the majority of the talk here. Now the Broncos, the third round, they have 3 third-round picks. First guy we're going to talk about here is former Iowa cornerback, Michael Ojemudia. Played boundary corner at the University of Iowa, which runs a 4-2-5 defense, mainly playing on the defensive field right. So like where the left tackle would be, that side of the field, far. Mainly played zone coverage, didn't get beat over the top very often, but Broncos said they liked him a lot, talked about maybe even taking him round 2. They liked him enough as far as a fit. Smart guy, long, ran, I think, a 4.45 40 with the length, with the size. Probably one of the last guys in this draft that didn't have, or he has starting upside on the boundary, which is something that has value.
Yep.
So what is your projection for Michael Ojemudia year 1 in this offense? Is he just going to be a special teams guy, or can he work his way into the starting role? And if so, where?
Oh, I think he can work his way into the starting lineup. I mean, cornerback is a position that does not have a whole lot of depth, or at least proven depth. It's got a lot of guys with some promise. Some guys that don't have, I mean, Yadam, I mean, they might be moving him to safety. So we'll see on that. But Bosby's coming back from injury, a pretty serious injury. That was pretty scary. I don't know what he's going to be. You got Callahan. We don't know what he's going to be, if he's actually going to be healthy or not. We've heard mixed reports on his health. And then of course you got Boye, who's coming off kind of an injured season / bad season. So he has as much opportunity as anybody. I do think if there's anybody that's hurt by the shortened offseason, it's him. I think he needed that time with the coaching to really work out some of his issues, because he is raw. I mean, he came into college as a linebacker, right?
Yes.
And then they moved him to border cornerback. And so it's just a position that he's still learning. And I love the guy. He's one of my favorite picks, because I do think he has some of the best upside of any of the picks they made. And especially, again, a guy that I can see a huge path to starting. And then he's coming from a system where they played a lot of zone coverage. Hey, he's coming to Denver, where they play a lot of zone coverage. So I think he has a really good opportunity to be a player. One thing I love is he's not a guy that, at least this last year, that made a lot of big mistakes.
No.
I mean, he gave up the underneath stuff. He was willing to surrender that, but you're never going to beat him over the top. And so that's something that really stuck out to me, that I know Fangio, that's something he preaches. We're going to make them march down the field. They're not going to hit those big plays over the top. And the Broncos, in their bad games last year on defense, they got beat over the top. They had players that made miscommunications pretty much both Chiefs games were both really bad communications in the secondary. And so, again, I do see that he could actually be a starter this year.
I agree with you there. I do think that your points about him fitting the defense, keeping everything in front of him, makes sense. It's something that the Broncos defense has really focused on since Vic Fangio has been to town. And it's something that on the other side of the ball, you can see it with the Broncos. I mean, when they have no explosive weapons on offense and you have to meticulously move the ball down the field, 10, 12 play drives, and it's becomes so much harder to score in the red zone then because of the compressed defense. So last year the Broncos had an incredible red zone defense. So if they can keep the plays in front of them, even if they're giving up, long plays and field goals, if you're keeping them out of the end zone, you're doing a good job. You're probably winning the game. So that's something like with Ojemudia. I do think it's interesting that they've talked about him playing maybe more of a nickel/safety role. He came to Iowa, linebacker and safety. They're kind of figuring out where that body type is. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're not bringing in 4- and 5-star athletes, so you kind of have to bring in the athlete and develop them at Iowa. Yeah. But do you think that's his position? Do you think he'll play that third safety role? I mean, I've heard some talk about him maybe playing that Will Parks role. Personally, for me, I see him more as battling Bosby as that other boundary corner with Callahan moving to the slot in nickel substitution packages.
Yep.
But so you agree with me there? Is that?
Yeah, I do. I think it is between him and Bosby. I mean, I guess the other Devontae Harris, could be in that conversation because he got some starting opportunities last year. And I do think to start off the season, they're probably going to lean a lot more on veterans than they have in the past, even though this is a great rookie class. And I do think Hamler and Jeudy will get some opportunities. And I think one of the other guys we're going to talk about here next, Cushenberry, I think he has as good of opportunity to start as any of the rookies. But for the most part, I still think they're going to lean a lot more towards veterans early on and kind of try to ease in a lot of these rookies as much as they can.
Yeah, so Ojemudia will be interesting to watch. Is he going to play that boundary versus Callahan, or is he going to play more of a hybrid role and fill in for Will Parks as that kind of third safety? So worth watching. Also, Isaac Yiadom did not have the best year last year, but we'll watch for him as well in that regard. I mean, he makes sense. He also had Devontae Harris, who was up and down last year. He really struggled down the stretch and ended up getting benched. Duke Dawson is still on the team. They brought in undrafted free agent Asang Bassi. They have Shaquille Taylor, Elijah Holder. So there's some names there. It just doesn't feel like there's a lot of strong options at cornerback. So we'll see. Ojemudia, interesting player to see where he fits. One that fits pretty easily, in my opinion. You already touched on it. Lloyd Cushenberry, I think he'll probably be plug and play at center. They're not the best pass protector all the time, but he's long. He's a smart guy. And the only tape that I really saw him get beat up on was against Derek Brown. That's going to happen. I mean, Derek Brown went top 10 for a reason. And, he's playing between Dalton Reisner and Graham Glasgow. So, Cushenberry, plug and play starter. Maybe Patrick Morris because he's been there. And again, with the offseason being weird this year due to points at the world, that maybe you'll see Patrick Morris have a little bit more of a chance than one would expect on paper in a normal offseason. But I think in the end, you take Cushenberry, a center, third round, you're probably going to plug and play him. Yeah.
He should, like I said, it's Jeudy, and then probably Lloyd Cushenberry is the next guy that has the highest chance of being a starter. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's in competition with Patrick Morris. Morris is a guy that I know that they're high on, but yet he's limited. Cushenberry, his size alone makes it hard for people to get around him. He, like you said, he's smart. He was a leader there. He got the number 18 jersey. I know a lot of people get confused because he actually wore number 79. College football does not let offensive linemen wear the jersey number 18. He's obviously not going to wear jersey number 18 in Denver. That would be kind of funny to see on the offensive line. But he's smart. He's a hard worker. I think he and Drew Lock are probably going to get a pretty strong bond going. But he does have his struggles. He doesn't stay very balanced. That was something, especially like you said, against Auburn. Now, how much do you weigh that? Because again, like you said, he's going against a top 10 pick player that just dominated everybody.
But that's NFL level competition. So it makes you
that's what he's going to face.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got Chris Jones. I mean, Chris Jones can do even more things as a pass rusher than what Brown can do. And I love Brown, but Chris Jones is better.
Yeah.
At least right now. And so he's going to have to improve for sure in some of those areas. And I mean, he's coming to the best situation possible with Munchak. And I mean, and like you said, he's got Reisner on one side, Glasgow on the other. So he's got two veterans that know what they're doing, that have shown strong ability, and both have actually played center. So they understand how the center works and what they need to do to communicate. So I do expect that interior as the season goes on will be very strong for the Broncos. There might be some communication errors early on, but I think that's one thing that really stuck out to me when watching LSU was how often the offensive line was on the same page. They understood when blitzes were coming, where the blitzes were coming, and that was Cushenberry. I mean, he understood what was in front of him. And so, I mean, if the offensive line got beat, it was because a guy just got beat. It wasn't because there was a mental mistake. And that's something last year the Broncos had left and right, was mental mistakes on the offensive line, compounded with guys that were just not great talents either. So,
and shout out to Joe Burrow's pocket awareness as well, helping those guys. They did end up winning the best offensive line award, but offensive line, quarterback, again, synergy, word of the day. Everybody drink. But Cushenberry, I think plug and play center. Maybe Patrick Morris is still a dark horse there, but I really am excited about Cushenberry. And also, I think you want to work on that chemistry right now between Cushenberry and Drew Lock. I mean, both hard workers, smart guys. You want them same wavelength, same brain length, pointing out the blitz. I mean, you want those guys working together and for the next decade.
Right. And it does sound like Drew Lock is planning on, as quickly as possible, safely, to be able to get together with these young guys and try to get some chemistry going. So kudos to him for trying to get that going as much as he can when teams can't really meet. We'll see what all happens with that. Real quick, before we get to our next one, since we're halfway through our time here with everyone.
Ready?
So I ordered 3 Building the Broncos hats recently, and I thought that I would offer one of those up here to one of our listeners today. Now you're going to have to, hopefully you're on Twitter. Otherwise we're going to have to figure out a way to find each other and communicate how for me to send that to you. Now you can go get your own Huddle Up or Building the Broncos swag here at this website, huddleuppod.com. Everybody head on over there. But so I was trying to think of a question to ask here. What should I ask here? All right.
Well, first off, you have to follow Carl Dumler on Twitter and also at BTB Football Pod. Make sure
Nick Kendell MHH.
You don't have to follow me. This is Carl's thing. I feel guilty, but make sure you follow Carl on Twitter. Also follow at BTB Football Pod. If you're following both of those, then you can qualify for that. And then Carl, I guess the question should be, who is your vote for the most underrated Bronco coming into this season? Just at you on Twitter, let you know, and you can pick one. Think of one in your head. Whoever answers that the same as you, then you can pick from them.
Okay.
So if a bunch of people say Drew Lock is underrated, they'll DM you. Obviously, you have to follow Carl and at BTB Football Pod to qualify, but at Carl on Twitter and say who's the most underrated Broncos at this point in time. Is it Drew Lock? Are we underrating him? Is it Phillip Lindsay? I mean, the backup running back being Phillip Lindsay. There's a lot of good options.
So the interesting thing is I had somebody ask me this on Facebook Messenger not too long ago, a Bronco fan. And so I already have my answer.
Well,
so we'll see. Yep. Stu McPeak coming in here with a super chat. Really appreciate it. Like I said, every time I see that, it just brings me back to my Seattle days. Love it. It's one of my favorite places. So like Nick said on Twitter, if you guys can guess my most underrated player heading into this season, and get into my head as Buwana B says here, that's a scary place to go. But good luck to all of you. And we will see who ends up winning. First person to guess my most underrated player heading into the season.
And I will bring it up at the end again. So make sure you are following at BTB Football Pod and at Carl Dumler MHH. Add him, DM him. His DMs are open, ladies. Don't tell his wife. But anyway, moving on here. McTelvin Najim, the Broncos' last third-round pick, University of Arkansas, former 5-star player, guy that's, okay. I mean, he's playing at Arkansas in the SEC. he's not going to have many games where he can pin his ears back and rush the passer unless he's playing whatever Children of the Corn state that those SEC teams tend to play that one game in November. But overall, solid player. He did his best work, came into at Arkansas more of a heavy defensive end, put on some weight, put on even more weight preparing for the draft as he was transitioning from the edge position to the defensive tackle position where he's going to play the NFL. A multiple guy, and Pro Football Focus's most underrated player heading into the draft this year for the interior defensive line. So I'm excited about him. I do think, obviously, round 3 pick, he's going to make the roster barring an injury. Carl, take care of those allergies next time, buddy.
I know. Sorry. I forgot my medicine today. I got so busy outside. I know, man. I know.
It's Ojemudia. I think he is going to make this team. I'm curious to see how his usage will be. I think he'll probably be the second guy off the bench because Dre'Mont Jones is coming into year 2. Dre'Mont Jones flashed really well towards the end of last season. I'm really excited about Dre'Mont Jones this year. Hopefully that's not your underrated player because now I'm waxing poetic about him. But Dre'Mont Jones, probably the other guy, but will be interesting to see where Ojemudia, does he add weight? Is he more of a sub package guy? Can he play that 3-4 defensive end? Does he have the length, the power to play? So is he going to be more of a sub package guy? So I like Ojemudia. That'll be an interesting player this year. Probably the 5th defensive lineman, but I wouldn't be surprised if he challenges for the 4th most snaps of the interior defensive line just because you're going to see some rotation. Maybe Dre'Mont Jones takes Shelby Harris's spot this year. That's possible. Yeah. Maybe they're trying to limit Harris and Kelsey, and maybe they're playing more 4-2-5, 3-3-5, and you see less Mike Purcell for those guys who can pin their ears back. So I've been ranting now. What do you think of Ojemudia?
I like him. I think he is more of a 2021 pick than a 2020 pick. He's got a lot to learn. He's pretty raw. He's one of those players that, he went into college, 5-star recruit, one of the top recruits in the entire country. And goes to Arkansas of all places, which is kind of surprising, but that is his home. So understandable, you want to stay close to home. And they were never in a situation to fully take advantage of his skill set. And the fact that they were losing most games really badly, and his best skill set is getting after the quarterback. Yeah. That first step quickness, that quick power to get through the line, make a play. He had one of those plays that was kind of why am I spacing on his name? The number 1 overall pick that Houston took him, or they had him last year. No, yeah, Clowney, yeah. I don't know why I was spacing on that. Sorry, but Clowney, he had that one play where he just rocketed a guy in the backfield.
And Michigan in the Outback Bowl.
Yep, Ojemudia had a play just like that. It's usually the first highlight that you see on his highlight tapes of him just busting through the line. Boom, hits a guy. Guy gets horizontal, going in the air, and it's pretty impressive. So he has some talent, and I think he'll get some snaps just to get him some experience and get some work with him. But I do think he needs a year of just developing his body, getting some technique down, working with Bill Kolar, and the Broncos thankfully have enough depth this year where they can do that. Last year, Dre'Mont Jones kind of got pushed into the starting role just because of injuries to Wolf and a couple other guys going down with some injuries. And so, that's something to kind of keep in mind there. But yeah, I think he'll have an opportunity just to kind of get some situational snaps this year and work his way to being hopefully a starter next year. I did want to get to a couple super chats before they disappear on me here. Alvin coming in with the super chat. Really appreciate it. Who is the best drafted player and why?
Well, it's probably on the Broncos right now, probably Von Miller. But in this draft class, honestly, my favorite is KJ Hamler. Now, is he going to be the best? No, I just really like what he brings to the table. And I thought it was really unique that the Broncos doubled down there and made what was a weakness a strength. I know that a lot of people will go against that in regards to, screaming tackle or linebacker or cornerback, but getting Jeudy and then getting Hamler on top of it to go with Sutton and Fant, you're talking about guys who all win in different ways. That makes me really excited. And how about you?
Charlie Beagle, Moody, if he's healthy.
Okay.
It's going to be interesting just because he plays a position that the Broncos just spent big at the right guard spot.
Yeah.
And so where do you see, it's hard to see his projection to becoming a starter unless they just say, we're going to have Glasgow for 2 years while Moody gets healthy and is a backup and builds up to being ready. And then either we trade off Glasgow or we let him go because his contract will be cuttable at that point. And then we bring in Moody to have 2 more years of rookie contract, that kind of thing. I mean, that could be a possibility. But I really like his game. I mean, it all comes down to health for him.
We got to talk about him still.
We do. But I wanted to get to Nad Ludlow coming in here with the super chat. Great job, guys. Best part of the day. It's the best part of our day, too. So appreciate that one. And let's see.
And we saw somebody here. Calvin had a question. I thought, Calvin Hamilton, if you do have that question, please get it in. So that way we can get to it. And now we're after day 1 and day 2. So guys, get some super chats in. We're going to start here. We're going to talk one more player here, and then we'll get back to the super chats because we're already running out of time because gosh darn, time flies. But Albert Ojemudia, and if I said his name wrong, I am sorry, guys. Somebody pronounced I thought I'm doing a good job, but I'm probably not. Ojemudia. For me, Ojemudia is a developmental tight end. I think some people are excited about the size and the tools, and he played with Locke. But for me, he's probably a guy who's probably more of a niche player. Year 1, he's going to come in. He's going to run some seam busting routes as far as from the tight end position, and also come in and play some big packages in the red zone, maybe even some H-back as well. But for me, you're probably not going to see him. Noah Fant, I think, is going to get the lion's share of the snaps. I think number 2 will be Vanette, just because I do think they want to run the ball. They have the personnel to run the ball still. And then you kind of see Beck and Ojemudia fight for some touches there. So Ojemudia, you're taking a lottery ticket there. It's day 3. I understand it's round 4, but it's still day 3. Massive guy with upside. If he only ends up becoming an okay player, that's not what you want, but he's got massive upside. So much more to me of a long-term projection player, a project who needs to get better in his route running, get much better as a blocker. I mean, I know he's 6'6", 260 or something, but he's not a good inline blocker right now. So probably more of a niche player year 1, hopefully contribute some to special teams. And at worst, year 1 coming in for a few snaps a game, run up the seam, be big, be fast, stress the safeties, stress the linebackers, and he can come in and do that year 1.
Yeah. All right. Here's that was not. Here we go. What are your thoughts with signing Damian Snacks Harrison to be a rotation nose tackle, being 350 pounds for depth to keep beef on the D line? I guess I'm not a fan of the signing. I mean, it depends on the money, obviously, but it's short term. Where right now I'm looking for more long-term signings of guys that I think could maybe show some promise, come onto the roster, do something. I like Damian Harrison, but he's on the downhill part of his career. He wasn't all that great with Detroit last year, given they didn't have a whole lot of talent on that team either. But still, I just think Mike Purcell did enough. And with how much the team plays nickel, I think Purcell can handle those nose tackle snaps. And so I have a hard time seeing how he's going to fit the roster because he is so limited as a player. He's a run stuffer. That's what he is at this point in his career. Yeah. And it just, like I said, it's just hard to see that becoming a long-term answer or even this year. And yeah, Karen, thank you for coming in here. Sorry, guys, we can't get to every question. We long-winded.
That's the biggest issue. That is, we want to get to every question, but Carl and I we love the sound of our own voices. I mean, I talk to myself all day long, and Carl is a preacher, so he's used to talking a lot as well. So obviously I know Zach and Chad have the, trademark on football priests, but we got the actual football priest over here. Anyway, but we try to get as much as we can.
I know. They do that.
That's okay. Yeah. We'll take a.
And we do, like I said, like Manny says here, keep asking the questions. We're not ignoring you. I promise. We're trying to get as much as we can. The chat just keeps going fast. And,
also, the super chats are colored. And if you're like me, anything that's shiny, it will get my attention immediately.
Ooh,
so the color comes on the screen. It's oh, pretty. But okay, well, we're going to have to be as long-winded on these last ones. Quick thoughts, 2 sentences, Albert Ojemudia.
Yeah, he's the one that I have a tough time seeing what his role is with the team. Just because, again, who are you taking off the field to put him on the field? And that's my biggest concern with him. I do see a red zone opportunity with him because he was very good in the red zone with Drew Lock. Mm-hmm. But right now I'd say rookie year, that's probably his role. Yeah. And then, here's another player, Covington, signed to the defensive line. So I do. And yes, James Campbell coming in here. Like I said, the defensive line group is pretty deep. So that's kind of an issue there that I would say. But yeah, James Campbell, go to Twitter, guys. We answer almost everything that is tweeted at us. So if you ask us a question on Twitter, I promise we're probably going to get to it. And because we love interacting with you guys, even beyond this show, as much as we possibly can, because we just love talking football. If anybody that's willing to talk football with us.
And if it's not you guys, then it's the wife. So do my wife a favor. Ask me football questions. That way I don't have to talk to her.
Yeah. And Alvin coming in. Appreciate it. You've been so great. Stay safe. Thank you. #blessed. #prayers. Same to you, Alvin. Same to you. And everybody else listening here. Just stay safe out there. Be smart. And we'll get through this together. We'll keep doing these shows and having a good time.
So Albert Ojemudia is done. We will have some more questions coming in there. We got the rounds 5 and 6 picks. Justin Strnad, for me, linebacker from Wake Forest, didn't test the best, had an injury this past year on his bicep. It was either his bicep or his forearm. Needed surgery. A guy who plays much faster than he tested. A smart guy, good coverage guy. I don't know what the long-term upside is as far as Strnad. I like him. I just don't know if he's a real difference maker at linebacker, but honestly, you don't need to have true difference makers at linebacker. You can just get by with solid guys. I think you're seeing that more and more. I mean, the Chiefs last year got by with glorified safeties at their linebacker position, and guess what? They won the gosh darn Super Bowl. So, linebacker, if Strnad can come in and play a sub-package linebacker, maybe take Johnson or Davis off the field to get a little bit more coverage chops, I think that's a good bet for him. Worst case, though, I mean, especially year one, you're going to get a smart guy who can come in and play special teams. But now we're talking about, late day 3 of the draft. These are lottery tickets.
Right. No, you're right. I like this pick a lot. He has some great tape. I mean, like I said, if you pay attention to the athletic numbers, you're going to be very disappointed in who this player is. If you pay attention to the tape, you're going to go, wow, this guy's pretty phenomenal. Especially in coverage, he proved to be one of the best in especially the ACC. And you just have to understand sometimes with linebacker, it is more about instincts than it is about athleticism. Now, athleticism helps. And when you can have both together, that's when you get an all-pro player. But it's hard to find that combination. It's why linebacker is one of those, it's kind of a guessing game. I'm trying to figure out what's going to work, who's going to actually come in and be a part of your system. But Terry Randall coming in here with another super chat, #state of being, #Broncos. Appreciate that very much there. And then I saw something else that I wanted to get to here. Jeff Green, I will remedy that after the show today. Sorry about that. I meant to be following you. I love talking to you about football. And anybody else here, again, just follow us on Twitter and we can talk football all day long. And
talking football, got to move it along here. Chad actually said we got to not run long today. So that's too bad. I would talk another 2 hours with you guys if I could. Broncos early 6th round pick, Netane Moody, guard from Fresno State. Am I misremembering that? It's Fresno State, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Fresno State. Played some left tackle, played guard, has sub 32 inch arms. I know some people talk, well, he played some left tackle at Fresno State. Why can't he play tackle at the NFL level? They don't even want guys with sub 34 inch arms playing tackle, but now we're talking about a guy with sub 32 inch arms. He's a guard. I think, the power's incredible. He's torn 2 Achilles and two ACLs and also a Lisfranc injury. So in my opinion, massive upside, obviously massive upside, power guy. Reminds me a little bit of Mikey Potty, who is one of the best powered guards in football for a long time. Yeah. I think probably your best bet with Netane Moody is that you put him on the IR this season, give him a redshirt year, and hopefully he becomes something, potentially becomes Jake Butt, but you're talking about a 6th round pick. That's the roll of the dice you get at this point in the draft.
Right. I mean, that's why he's there. That's why he's not being taken in the second round.
Exactly.
That's the only reason. And so I would rather take a guy with injury history and higher upside than a guy that has 0 upside and is just going to be a special teams player for you, but doesn't have the injury history.
Like a guy that I love him to death, but like the guys that you don't want to have propagated on your roster is, while he's a great, person and good character player, you don't want to be filling your day 3 with only Josie Jules.
Yeah.
Like if your whole roster in the day 3 is a bunch of Josie Jules, you have guys that are making the roster, but are they moving the needle? I don't know. I'd rather take a shot, especially here around 6. If you can get a guy, I'd rather him be off the roster in a couple years than, be taking up time and not a dude. So That's my opinion.
Right. And so, yeah, I think everybody here knows I love the Moody pick. Yeah. I think he could end up being if he's healthy, I think he could be the best rookie, not named Jerry Jeudy, on this team.
Yeah.
Just because he has the highest upside to really be that kind of impact player. And so I like this question. Who runs the fastest 40 time at MHH?
It's not Eric.
we thought about doing a body issue calendar.
Give me some time. Let's do the next draft.
I know.
Quarantine has not been kind. I lost all that weight before the wedding, and now I've been cooking. I've been not drinking, unless hashtag next beer fun. But 2 more guys here. Quick, we'll get to them quickly, and then we're going to take your questions because we can't be here long because Boss Man said we can't. Tyree Cleveland, 7th round pick, a guy that brings a lot of energy. I've read a lot good as far as his character. I mean, he's a guy who you see him run down the sideline cheering his teammates on a big play, like all the time. People love that. I think he's going to be battling with Tim Patrick and Juwan Winfrey as far as that 5th/6th wide receiver spot. Much more of a special teams player, a gunner. Odds are I think he ends up on the practice squad, probably along with Juwan Winfrey this season. You'll see them both on the practice squad, in my opinion. But there is a small chance that Tyree Cleveland could come for Tim Patrick's job. He's younger. You have more years of control with him. And, it just pushes the contracts and those needs down the line. Tim Patrick, I believe, he was a restricted free agent this past year. I think so. Either exclusive rights are restricted. So you're just kicking that can down the line as far as one of those roster spots.
It's one of those, if you think you can get him on the practice squad, then you keep Tim Patrick. If you think another team is going to want that kind of speed on their roster, then you probably keep Cleveland. Something else to kind of keep in mind that's kind of just a neat fact. His jersey number is going to be 86. And his last name is Cleveland. 86 is when they had the drive against Cleveland. So I don't know if they did that on purpose, but So Darian P coming in here with super chat. Eric has insane play speed though. Hashtag Nick's beer fun. Eric would agree with you. Not sure we would agree with you. But hey, when he needs to move, he can move.
Exactly. No, that's a good point. Last guy here. Got to keep it rolling. Then we'll get to the questions. So the last time, get the questions in. We'll talk real quick, though. Derek Tuska, edge rusher from Notre Dame. Tested pretty well at the combine, but a smaller guy. A little bit more of probably a sub-package rusher. Needs to show a little bit more as far as coverage ability, I believe, to make this team. He's going to be probably battling with Malik Reed as far as that 4th or 5th edge rusher kind of off the team. I do think that Justin Hollins is probably safe, a little bit more upside length as far as that ability to make the team. And also they brought back Jeremiah Tachu. But I think Derek Tuska, it's going to be Tuska versus Malik Reed, in my opinion. Tuska does have practice squad eligibility. I think I might like Tuska's upside more than Malik Reed's, though.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. All right, some questions here.
Bring them in, guys. Bill, super chats or not. If
Bill,
super chats,
1293. Yeah. Would any of you do a Tunsil/Ramsey type of trade if the right player became available? So here's how I will voice this. If the Broncos outperform this year, Drew Lock shows that he is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, and the wide receiver weapons prove that they are everything that we're hoping that they're going to be, and the Broncos feel like they are that one player away. Yes. I mean, the Chiefs did it this last year. They went and got Frank Clark, made that trade to really help their interior or their defensive line to be able to get after the quarterback. They made a couple other trades that obviously, it paid off. They won a Super Bowl. I think there are times where you got to take those risks and be willing to give away some draft capital. The Broncos are going to have some cap space to be able to do those things. So yes, I would be willing to make a trade like that if Drew Lock proves to be that guy.
That's the biggest thing. I hate to be that guy, but I need to see more Drew Lock before I'm making that trade. So, the 5-game sample size right now, obviously we saw greatness from him in that Texans game. I thought he was pretty good in that Kansas City game as well, actually. But, a little bit, they really put the training wheels on, maybe even added an extra set of wheels in regards to that Detroit game, the Vegas game. Chargers game was a little bit up and down. So 5 games, I believe in Drew Lock. I'm cautiously optimistic, but until I feel better about him, I couldn't give up a first-round pick. You need to have that first-round pick just in case things go wrong. with Drew Lock this year. That's just the sad reality of it.
All right. Got another one here. Is from Oscar. Is Boye a scheme fit, or did Denver just think he was the best they could get? He is a scheme fit.
Yes.
He has that click and close ability to come downhill, make plays. That's exactly what you want out of your cornerbacks. He's a great tackler as well. And Fangio has wanted this guy since his time in Chicago. So he's been keeping his eye on Boye, and obviously being able to get him here in Denver, that was huge for him. So yes, I do think he is a scheme fit.
Yeah. No, you're definitely right. And I think I somehow got the school wrong with Derek Tusk. I see a couple people saying, did I say Notre Dame? Excuse me. North Dakota. I saw NDSU. I saw wow, there it is again. North Dakota State beat the Iowa Hawkeyes the year after Wentz was drafted at Iowa. It was a major upset. So maybe I hold that against them. I'll just call them wrong forever. That green and yellow. Yeah. I'm just kidding. North Dakota State, I respect the program. They got a good quarterback. Right. Have you seen any of him yet?
I haven't watched any, but I've heard he's pretty good.
Trey Lance. So
Vinay P coming in here. What do you think about Elway's plan in the later rounds? I'm fine with the high risk, high reward players like Albert O, Moody, and Sternad instead of getting special teams players at like safety.
I think Sternad is kind of that safe player.
Yeah.
He's the injury thing, but he's more of that safe kind of guy where if he performs better than Josie Jewell has on his first 2 years, then you hit the pick, in my opinion. So
yeah, I think you need a mix because you need those special teams players. You need those guys that can be consistent, bottom of the roster guys that are going to contribute if you absolutely need them to.
They need that, or I guess that's no wait. I can't even.
Yep, you had it right.
Okay, for you guys, it's backwards on me, but that's what you need. You need to have that C on the jersey.
Robert Caslow coming in here. Which AFC West team killed the draft other than the Broncos?
Oh man, I guess I would say the Raiders just overall, but just because they had more picks. I mean, they had 5 picks in the top 100. It was just, they had more shots in the chamber, bullets in the chamber. So I don't think the Chiefs did amazing. I don't think the Chargers did amazing. I think the Broncos came away with the best draft, but just because of the amount of picks that they had in the top 100, I feel like the Raiders did a solid job.
Well, and here's the thing about the Raiders. They seem to mess up the early rounds and do pretty good in the later rounds.
Gosh, Max Crosby. I think that bothers me. He's so good. God damn it.
Yeah, and so I guess that's where I see the strength of their draft was in the later rounds. I liked some of their picks, thought they were pretty good value, where in the early rounds, of course, they were way off on their rankings, at least compared to me. And so, but I'd still give it to them. Like you said, Chargers, I'm not a big fan of their new quarterback. I think he's going to be probably average. I don't think he has a pretty high floor, I think, but he doesn't have a huge high ceiling. And then of course, taking Murray in the first, coming back and trading up to get him. Wasn't a fan of that just because I liked a lot of the linebackers, and Murray, you've talked about it where you can fake him out. I mean, you could do the whole fake your dog with the fake the throw. He's going to fall for that every time.
Yeah, but everybody talks about his energy and his passion and work ethic and whatnot. I just did not see the processing ability. And again, I think I said it 100 times on here when we were doing the draft podcast, but if that guy does not make an impact in the pass game, I don't want him in the first round. You can't use a premium resource on that player. And I just did not see that from Kenneth Murray. He was a chase and tackle linebacker who played really simple zone concepts and did not have good processing ability. So I think the Chargers, I really like where they were going to that defense. But Justin Herbert and Kenneth Murray and giving up your day 2 picks, man, I would not have done that, especially with their offensive line issues. I mean, Justin Herbert played behind a really good offensive line in a pass rush depraved Pac-12. Now he's going to go to the Chargers with that offensive line. Man, I don't know.
All right, can we get one question in real quick?
Oh, Chad can wait a couple minutes. We got a few more. He said we had a little bit of window here. If we go an hour and 5 minutes, I think Chad can live.
Okay. So Jenga Ninja coming in here. Can Cortland have Megatron numbers in the next few years? He definitely has the best stiff arm in the league. So the problem now is actually there's almost too many weapons for him to have those kind of numbers. I still think he can have like that 12 to 1,400 yard season just because he's that good. But when we're talking like the 1,800 yard seasons, I just think there's so many weapons now. He's not going to see as many targets as he could have if, say, the Broncos stayed the course and they just kept force feeding it to him.
And also Megatron, which is really interesting with him in his career. Obviously, when you have gosh darn Megatron, one of the best freak players to ever play the game of any position, you're going to feed him targets like crazy. But once Megatron kind of started to dwindle a little bit in his athletic ability, they brought in, I believe, Jim Bob Cooter. Matt Stafford's ability got much better when they started spreading the ball around. So Sutton could put up Megatron numbers, but I think just also because the offensive game in general is increasing the pass volume. But I think that means bad things in regards to the overall synergistic effect, everyone drink, of the offense, because that means that Jeudy's hurt. That means that something went wrong if Cortland Sutton is putting up those individual numbers. And I will say, I think I'd rather have Sutton be much more efficient, calling in more targets, better yards per target, better touchdown rate. Look at those rate numbers rather than the count statistics. I think those are key in regards to the health of the offense.
Yeah. Saw somebody ask the question of who won the trade between the Bears and the Raiders for Mac.
Everyone loses.
Well, I would say that I'd give it to the Bears just because they've made the playoffs with Mac.
Is it too early to say for the Raiders? I mean, we don't even know about some of their picks yet. So, if some of those guys really hit, that's fine. I mean, the biggest thing, the Bears would have won, but they chose Mitchell Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. And once you did that, the quarterback position is so important, you screwed the pooch. Yep. There it goes. I mean, you had a great defense. You had a quarterback who couldn't throw freaking left. It's over.
Nope, I agree. That's one of the biggest differences there. If you can't get the quarterback right, it doesn't matter what else you have. I mean, even here in Denver, Manning wasn't great, but at least he had his leadership qualities that he brought to the team. He at least had some of that. The teams had to fear what he could bring to the table.
There's a reason that quarterbacks like Derek Carr and Andy Dalton get paid huge contracts. Nick Foles. It's not because they're good. It's because if you don't even have a competent quarterback, everybody's fired.
Yep.
Everybody. I mean, we've seen that in Denver. Everybody's fired. So that's why you see mediocre quarterbacks still get paid.
Yep. All right. Make sure you head on over to huddleuppod.com. Check out our BTB swag that's out there. Some great hats. Like I said, I've ordered 3 of them. And very excited to get those in the mail here very soon. And hopefully one of you will be getting one of those very, very soon. The question of the day to be able to win that hat, first person to guess who my dark horse underrated player on the Broncos roster is for this upcoming season.
But you need to be following at BTB Football Pod. We will check. And you need to be following. I got enough followers. You guys are whatever. You guys are mid. I'm just kidding. But Carl. Follow Carl. He's the one giving it away. It's from the bottom of his heart. He's the nice one there. So at follow Carl Dumler MHH as well. Probably time for Carl. Any more questions here? Worried about here's an interesting one. Jody's been hitting us with this. I know he's very much an anti-Bulls guy. Didn't love Ruggs. Nick, are you worried about KJ Hamler's drops? I am worried about his drops. I mean, how could you not? There's a reason that he fell to that round. That being said, I think there's a little bit too much being made about his drops. If you watch his tape, Sean Clifford was a glorified tight end playing quarterback. I mean, he's like Taysom Hill if Taysom Hill was less accurate and less athletic. So some of those drops, I mean, gosh, you'd see Julio Jones struggle with those drops. And also, I think that with Hamler, the biggest thing with him is that he brings speed and he's got the ability to separate. I mean, we've went over the numbers with Will Fuller 100 times on here. Will Fuller had a 13% drop rate in college, and he still is an incredible difference maker, even without touching the ball. So I think you're still going to see that with Hamler. However, it is a concern. It's something you want to see improve. It's a nuanced answer. I know you do. Not everybody always gets it on the radio in Denver, maybe. But we're going to give that to you here. So that's my opinion.
Yep. Agreed.
So make sure you guys are following Carl Dumler at MHH. Make sure you're following at BDB Football Pod and at Carl. See if you can guess his most underrated player for the Broncos heading into the season. Carl, anything before I read the outro here?
Nope. Great show. Everybody, thanks for participating. And sorry we didn't get to as many questions today. We had a lot that we wanted to talk about. We're going to have a lot of weeks where we're going to be able to get to lots of questions.
Yep.
And so I'm excited for those as we move forward. But thanks for tuning in, guys. And I'll let you close us out here.
Well, again, make sure you're following Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH. Follow me on Twitter as well, at Nick Kendell MHH. And go over to milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. Go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. I still go check those, and your guys' support can help us continue to bring you these Denver Bronco deep dives, which obviously Carl and I love to do. You guys can follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content by subscribing to the Huddle Up podcast wherever you listen to these shows. You can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at BTB Football Pod. Carl, make sure you guys at Carl, DM him. Make sure you text him enough, message him enough that his wife is wondering what the heck's going on. And, I like to spam him at 2 a.m. asking him, "Have you seen this player that's going to be eligible in 2022? He's incredible." Blah blah blah. So that's what we're about. And ask us football questions all the time. I absolutely love it. If you can distract me from doing some work and I can talk football and go down that rabbit hole with you, take me with you. I'm here for you. But anything, Carl, before we get on out of here?
Nope. I think you covered it all, man.
Yeah, well, hit the like button. Thank you guys so much for coming in here today. We really appreciate it. The Building the Broncos podcast, TGIT. Thank God it's Tuesday. Best day of the week, in my opinion, since we've been doing these. I love doing it. Really appreciate you, Carl. Appreciate you, listeners. We hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed it. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place. As always, got to depart with Go Broncos.